This episode is brought to you by the RVA Podcast Network. Find more information at rvapodcast.org.
We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such. What's good, y'all? It's season 5 of thePass BT Pod with your host, BT. We have a new season here, and it's time to get this show going. As you all know, we talk about sports. Sports won't be as big of a carrier this year. I think we'll be carrying it more towards the stuff, and predominantly on the sports side, you'll be hearing more from the musical aspect, but we will still be talking about technical. We'll be giving you the video game content. I will still be going over the ass of the week. We'll definitely be passing the message. You'll be getting an angel number, and you'll get quite a few gems. So sit back, relax, take your time, don't waste your time. This is thePass BT with your host, Brian. What's going on, y'all? What's good? Episode 315 of thePass is here. As always, I'm your host, BT, with yet another episode, and I will be the first to admit there's a lot of things that we have to unpack on this episode, and I'm going to do my best to get through as many of these topics. Well, I'm not going to say as many of them. We're going to talk about all of them, and there's definitely a lot to get on the table and address or talk about. So this is probably going to be one of the few times that it's been a while since I've done it, but I will be using my fave, or one of my personal favorite apps, Workflowy. I'm not sponsored by Workflowy, but it has been and will be one of my go-to apps that I've used for note taking, or kind of like a bullet point based program. I've talked about it on the podcast before. I'm going to mark this show so I can go back and find that specific episode that I did talk about it. But nonetheless, we're not going to give too much emphasis on that. I wanted to at least mention that before we get into our content and our information for today. So without any further ado, as we always like to do, we'll start with our angel number, and we'll go through our line of topics, because a lot has happened literally since the last time I recorded. If you are or aren't aware, I've not recorded a show in almost 9 days. So things can change within 9 days. And you sometimes never realize the extent of that until it happens. And you're like, dang, a lot of things did go down. So we'll get into all of those stories in just a bit. But before we do that, I do want to start off with my tradition and my routine of talking about our angel number, which, as we always say, is going to tie into our actual episode number of 315. Most times, we tend to underestimate the power of meaning behind symbolism in numbers that appear all around us. One thing we need to know is that recurring numbers in our lives happen because a message is being sent to a particular person. A wise person will make sure that they find out what is being communicated to them. In this case, it is not a coincidence that you keep on seeing number 315. That is your fairy angel communicating to you, and here is the message. If you have been thinking of investigating in the share or bond market, this is the right time to do just that. Your angel number 315 is telling you that it's time for an increase, expansion, and reaping high yields. The shares that you invest in will increase in value. That property you want to sell will give you the best returns. Don't hold back, because everything is working in your favor right now. Don't be scared to take risks. Remove all negative thoughts and instead have a positive mind. Be optimistic that whatever you are working on will be fruitful, as your angel numbers are rooting for you. Angel number 315 is characterized by good attributes that are meant to take you places. Being assertive, principled, and taking initiative is associated with number 3, whereas number 1 is all about forging ahead and building yourself, be it in career, family, or business life. Be willing and ready to make those necessary changes in your life in order to achieve what you have set out to do. Flexibility is attributed to number 5. Experience is the best teacher, but at times it is good to learn from other people's experiences and build on that. Angel number 315, meaning, also informs us to learn from past mistakes and experiences. Do not dwell on them, but make those moments a stepping stone to greater achievements. Don't let what happened in the past hold you back. Instead, consider it a learning experience and work towards being better things for your growth. Valuing the lessons learned from your experiences, the right choices and decisions you make will go a long way in the betterment of your life. That is the main message from Angel number 315. Also, being optimistic regardless of the tough times that you face is a must. I definitely am receiving today's angel number because I have purchased this book at the beginning of the year, and I've had other people talk to me. I've even joined a group on Facebook to learn about investing and really, I won't say unpacking or trying to analyze and figure out the ins and outs of investing, but really getting a solid foundation on what investing entails. So reading that alone is very key. The last few days, I have been more aware and more in tune with learning the importance and the value of lessons and moments and teaching and experience and what you gain from things that have or have not happened in your life, and where those things can put you or have a tendency to place you without you even asking to be put there. And that has been something that I have carried very strongly with me in the last few months, if not over my entire life. So reading this angel number definitely brings a heavier perspective or stronger look at where this all comes from or how this all plays out or comes together. So I'm definitely here for it, and I am not going to undercut or ignore the relevance or importance of this. We have, like I said, I have a lot that we're going to get to in a bit. I will go ahead and get this story, I guess you could say, off the table, because it actually broke. This story broke after recording episode 314. And so I want to go ahead and get this story out there because it has become a big deal, or it was a big deal before, but it's really a big deal now after what has happened. So the Atlanta Dream are going to be sold. Kelly Loeffler will have no association with the team. The Atlanta Dream are close to being sold. A WNBA spokesperson confirmed with ESPN. As it relates to the Atlanta Dream, we understand the sale of the franchise is close to being finalized. Once the sale negotiation is concluded, additional information will be provided. Sources told ESPN on Tuesday that up to 5 bidders have expressed interest in buying the team, with Senator Kelly Loeffler, currently a co-owner, expected to have no association with the franchise after the sale. The franchise has been at the center of turmoil since Loeffler wrote a letter. I don't know. Look, it sounds better saying left a letter to WNBA Commissioner. Wrote a letter to WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, objecting to the league's embrace of the Black Lives Matter movement during the 2020 season. Players around the league initially called on Loeffler to sell her share of the team, which was 49%. But when she refused, they instead publicly endorsed her opponent in her senatorial race, the Reverend Raphael Warnock. Warnock defeated her in the January 5th runoff and will be sworn into Congress this week. And if you are or aren't aware, this was a re-election that they did at the beginning of the year, and by Reverend Raphael winning that election, it was able to make the Senate 50-50, which then led to now it's going to be up to Vice President Kamala Harris to be the deciding factor of the last vote, which will in turn or in hindsight go to the Democrats. Over the summer, ESPN reported that Dream president Chris Senko and majority owners Mark and John Brock, the former CEO of Coca-Cola Enterprises, have been providing financial information to potential buyers of the team. It remains unclear what role the Brock family would have with the team going forward, but the expectation is the new buyer would have majority ownership. Brock and Loeffler have owned the team since 2012. And they give a couple more pieces of information. One big story from this that was talked about when this all happened is that there was a rumor, but it was not confirmed, and it kind of, to say what I was saying, had some red tape involved with it, because indirectly, to say what I was saying, it almost would have been a conflict of interest if it had become a thing of LeBron James possibly getting involved with getting this team, possibly being an owner of the team. And I don't know the laws and or bylaws of the NBA and how that would work, but I know that did come up as a story that he was looking at possibly being involved with trying to purchase the team as well. But I think, as far as I can tell, like, we haven't heard his name come back up again for this role. So we're kind of, I won't say we're in waiting or just kind of sitting back on it, but it sounds like that conversation didn't, I knew that was going to make some noise. It hasn't had as much traction as it initially had. There we go. Fidget moment. My bad, y'all. But it is now, the team is available to be purchased. And this is kind of almost a deja vu of what happened with the LA Clippers. And I'm going to look back and see if I have the article. I placed another mark on the show for that, explaining where this, how this all stemmed out, because Loeffler has not really been in the right position to say the right things. And the team has been very rebellious against her for it, because it's almost as though she's saying, I don't care what you all are or aren't doing. I'm looking at what my personal political views are. And it's like, you do understand that if you have no players on your team, you technically don't have a way of being able to play. It's a tough scenario to think about, but it's something you have to also remember and look at. Just like the NBA has a players union, the WNBA has a players union. So there were probably or likely players involved with this that have been kind of, to say what I was saying, indifferent in their decision and or choices of what to do in regards to handling this entire interaction. But from what we can tell now, it's pretty much written in stone that they are letting Loeffler go, and they're looking for suitors of this team. So if you have the money and you are looking to invest in a WNBA team, I almost said an NBA team because they're part of the NBA, then they are available to be acquired. Going into the NBA, I'm going to give a few stories, but then I'm going to, before I go into the obvious and get the main stories, their attention or their conversation, we'll kind of give a bit of an NBA update, because I believe when we last did our last show, the James Harden trade happened. And there have now been questions of what's going on with Houston. We've actually seen Houston and Washington play against each other. We got to see Westbrook and John Wall play against each other with their new teams. You can see that Bradley Beal did not want John Wall to leave, but it's also him understanding that it's a business. He's been talking about wanting to be traded, but it hasn't really been a public conversation. A lot of guys, I know, even with Oladipo going to Houston, he's wanted out, but he's also been, kind of playing the course with being PR oriented and just saying, hey, I'm going to stay. As of right now, my focus is put into Houston, and once we get to the point of working on a contract, I'll figure out what I plan to do at that point. But as of right now, my heart, my mindset, and my focus is with the Houston Rockets. So good deal with that, and that's all well and valued. A few months ago, this story initially came up of the NBA All-Star Game was not going to happen this year. I have my thoughts on that, and we're going to get into that in a bit, but we're going to kind of progress to where we are right now. The NBA and the Players Union are looking to possibly hold an All-Star game in early March. The site that they're looking to use, which is one of the few sites that are open and would be able to do it, would be Atlanta. The initial All-Star weekend was set for February 12th through 14th, but it was postponed back in November due to COVID. They will instead be hosting the mid-season event for 2024. They've engaged the NBA and the Players Union have engaged in ongoing talks to hold an All-Star game on March 7th. The revised event will allow for the game to support locally HBCUs and COVID-19 relief. There have also been talks to use the Atlanta Hawks facility, the State Farm Arena, or a gym at an HBCU. Turner Sports, the network that has the television rights to the game, is also based in Atlanta. The mid-season break is scheduled for March the 5th through the 10th. So far, the NBA has postponed 21 games due to COVID-19. So I'm going to get into this, and before I do that, I do want to mention that the All-Star voting, if you are looking or are interested in voting for the NBA All-Star game, they do have the voting ballot available on NBA.com. I believe the option is going to still be there where you can do it by email. You can also do it, I believe, by text. I know they had that option last year. They'll likely be doing that again this year, and that will get a lot of people to vote players in that they're interested in seeing in the upcoming NBA All-Star game. I'm going to say this about this entire thing, and this is probably going to go into a tangent, but I want to get everything on the table in regards to just this portion of the story alone. I personally do not feel that I still have my delays and my doubts of the NBA season being played this year. I understand it's a $6 billion business or a $6 billion net worth to the NBA. So they don't want to lose anything on the space of being able to play, because they've been able to show games. Some games have had fans based on location. Some games have been empty. Some games I've even gone as far as seeing college basketball games with cutout fans at the game. So I get those factors and I get those portions of it. Great, cool, fine, whatever. I'm just looking at the health and the safety of the players, as well as the members of the team, such as coaches, assistant coaches, trainers, medical, I guess you could say medical personnel, things of that sort. Just everyone that's part of a team is impacted by this. I believe the story broke after we did our last recording, but the Memphis Grizzlies did have 3 games postponed or, obviously not played because of COVID-19. And I believe a game or 2 more were added. I brought this to someone else's attention, and I'm sharing this with you all on the platform because it's valuable to know and it's helpful to keep in mind. They are canceling games, or a lot of games are being postponed or not being shown. But who has not stopped showing games? TNT. In a sense, ESPN has kind of been, what ESPN has been doing is, if it's a main game that they were expected to have, TV has a way of doing what TV wants to do, which is, whether we realize it or not, TNT and ESPN they're gonna have camera personnel at the game. It's no roundabout way to say it. And as a fan of the sport, you have to be realistic in understanding that. It gets ignored or it gets lost in translation at times because we just look at it as, well, the game is going on and they're just, that game got canceled, so they're not going to have a game in place. If we have watched football long enough, we have seen it on NBC multiple times where they say, hey, this game is set for the 8 o'clock game. We don't want this game to be the 8 o'clock game. Instead, we'll rearrange things so that this team instead plays at 4:00 or maybe 1:00, and we'll make this game our quote unquote primetime game. So games can be aligned for the sake of what needs to be shown. Now your local showings, I understand. Yes, they're losing out. But the major companies, the major sports hits, TNT has no intentions of not showing inside the NBA on Thursdays. There, I said it. Like I feel, and it's not even I feel better, because I was literally about to say I feel better. But I mean, I feel like I felt the way I felt before I said it, but I just now can say, hey, here's what you got. Here's what we are. You got to be realistic, and you got to call it what it is. And it's been, it literally, without saying it, has been in black and white and has been in front of us for quite some time. It just comes down to, do we really want to take time and acknowledge it? Or is it just, it ain't really nothing that's really hitting us that bad. It shouldn't be the end of the world. But in reality, it does play a big role, because stations or your major networks do not want to lose that money or that ads or those spots to have things. Because if you think about it, you take TNT off, you take the NBA panel section out from, let's say, 8 to, or we'll say 7:00 until 1:00. Think of how much money TNT loses. Think of how much money ESPN loses when they show their doubleheaders on Fridays or on Wednesdays. Like, those are things that you have to think of and really look at with the climax or the climate of the NBA. I don't know where did the climax come, but the climate of the NBA as of right now. So I just wanted to talk about that for a bit. And I already mentioned just now that, like I said, they do have the All-Star ballot available. So if you are interested or looking to vote for the upcoming All-Star game that will likely happen, then that link is there, and you'll have other options available to vote as well. If you subscribe to the NBA emails, you've likely received an email or will receive an email to complete your actual process of voting for players into the All-Star game. I'm gonna continue with my sports, but I'm gonna slip some interesting info in, and this is me kind of doing a side promo and a little bit of business push. I have two friends who are both, I call them my creative accountability partners. One does candles and the other one does bracelets, waist beads. Sage, she does it. Like and I'm not saying they both do it. They doing their thing. I've been wearing the bracelets, and I have been using the selenite crystals, things of that nature, and that's been very helpful. But I'm talking right now with the candle portion, because I believe not this well, no, actually, you know what? Since we did our last episode, I have been introduced to a mind-blowing moment of when and this is random information, so I should be putting it under stuff, but I'm talking about it now before we get into the rest of our stories. If you burn candles, I personally would recommend ordering or buying a wick dipper. Hear me out. It's going to sound, or better yet, just get a candle set. It's ways to take better care of your candles. Between the wick dipper, the candle cover, I call it, and the actual wick cutter. There's one that is like a cutter that you can cut like extra portions of the wick off. And then there's one where you have the actual, it's similar to what you see in most churches when they are getting the candle to be blown out without actually blowing it. You can just put this over the candle and it goes out. It will bring the smoke up. The wick dipper is the wow factor for me. And I know I'm doing this at an odd point in the 22-minute mark of a podcast, but being able to realize that all you have to do is literally put this little device beside the wick and just dip it into the actual candle wax. It doesn't give the actual smoke that most candles give after you blow, stop a candle from going. So I like that feature. So I'm just sharing that. I will, if I have not already, put her link in the show notes. I'll put both links for both businesses in the show notes because they have been supportive of me with what I'm doing on this platform with podcasts. And so I'm learning to support Black owned and support businesses in general. 2021, my number one goal and my number one priority has been to not call businesses small owned business, but call them businesses. Because regardless of whether we look at it, a business is only big as its customers. Just might be the message to pass along. But we'll run those. We'll go into that later on. Back to basketball and continuing. You kind of almost want. I can almost call this a follow up from our podcast last week about mental health. I was able to give a bit of an update of Kevin Porter looking to be waived or traded by the Cavaliers. And it turns out that the Cavs did find a suitor, and it was indeed the Houston Rockets. Now, I want to be sure because I'm probably going to be freestyling a little bit on this, but I don't believe Kevin Porter has actually played a game yet for Houston. And if he hasn't, then it is what it is. Let's see. 226. Yeah, so they haven't. These are all like older games, but as far as he's been out of rotation for a bit. Like the last time he really played was last year. He's not played. He's played a couple games here and there this season, but they're kind of doing like a reset on his schedule or on his stat line since he went to Houston. But he was traded for a heavily protected future second round pick. The pick is top 55 protected, meaning it is likely to never convey. The Rockets are taking on Porter, who is a 6'4" wing, who was the 30th overall pick in the 2019 draft, as a reclamation project after personal issues have prevented him from playing this season. He averaged 10 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists during a promising rookie year. They decided to trade or waive him after a screaming match with team officials last Friday when he attended the first game of the season. He was upset that his locker had been moved to an auxiliary area after his old locker was given to Taurean Prince. After careful and thoughtful evaluation, we have made the very difficult and collective decision to make this trade. Given the culture and environment we have worked to cultivate here in Cleveland, we feel this move is in everyone's best interest. And this is from Kobe Altman, who is the Cavs GM. Not really much else to say on this story other than just it's good that he's getting a new start. I personally hope that he gets not just the time that he needs to play, but the help that he needs to be a better person. And that's really my overall stance and or perspective on where things are with him and how I feel about his play and his overall success with the team. Because he's a valuable asset to the NBA. If he really can back down from his statement and realize that the NBA is what's keeping him employed, then he'll understand that it's always, to say without saying, it's always bigger than basketball, but you have to know how to handle it being bigger than basketball. And that's where the resources and the communication and the getting through points come into play. So I'm going to just leave that at that, and we'll go into our next story. I'm going to make this a good conversation, but also a good place to discuss what I'm about to talk about. So as a hoops fan, I have seen basketball evolve and transition through all of its phases and all of its points, good and bad. No one wants to say this. I'm probably going to be the bad guy in saying it because we need to really look at it for what it is. This past draft class was not the greatest of draft classes, but they still were players who were drafted and have an opportunity to play in the NBA. So I don't want to downplay and or ignore their opportunity or their placement of playing in the league, because that's not fair to them and that's not fair to the game. So I don't want to sound like that fan or that person, but I also need to be sure that I'm honest with what I'm saying or where I'm going with this conversation. That being said, we are currently going to start getting these updates. And this is the first one. I'm not sure how often I'm going to do these. We may do it every month, but looking at what's considered as the Kia rookie ladder. Everyone who was anyone knew last year, it was kind of John Morant and the field. You had other guys who were in that conversation, but for the most part, last season, John Morant just blossomed in the game. He blossomed in the game, with the game, and through the game. And we saw it on display throughout his rookie year. Furthermore, we're really seeing it because he was out for quite a few games with the Memphis Grizzlies, and his first few games back with the team, you saw a different speed and a different play. I still think what Memphis needs, they need Jaren Jackson back. Like Jaren Jackson Jr., I think is a very developed based player that can grow the game. And that's what I'm noticing. My initial rant and or tangent that I was going to before talking about the Kia rookie ladder is, as I talk about frequently and often, I'm part of I run or am an admin and or moderator of a sports group on Facebook called The Space to Sport. If you want to get good conversation about basketball, football, baseball, soccer, hockey, tennis, lacrosse, high school football, high school basketball, anything that you really want to get off of your chest sports related that is not chaotic, goes into this conversation or goes into this group. A couple of days ago, a conversation was started about the rookie ladder or the rookie watch. LaMelo Ball and Cole Anthony played against each other. Cole Anthony had the better stat line, had the better game. Because they are rookies, it's an unfair hit to look at who did better and who filled what role. I had a discussion with one of the fellow members in the group, and our conversation, we were missing each other in the conversation that we were having. So I'm going to give clarity on the platform before we talk about the Kia rookie ladder. Now, I know I should not be doing this in this manner, but this is where using your space to really clarify things and clear it up becomes beneficial. First and foremost, I'm going to be wholehearted. I'm not in a position where I feel that it's necessary to apologize for what I said. I understood where I was coming from and what I stated. The only thing that I know I did not need to emphasize is you responding, or you and I, the person who I was having this conversation with, you and I conversing about this and it turning into listening to understand versus listening to respond. That part was not deemed necessary, and I will take accountability and say that was wrong. I was wrong for that. That did not need to be said. If it needs to be claimed as an apology, my bad, my apologies, my fault. I'll hold that L with pride. What I was pointing out, now this is not I'm apologizing, but here's where I'm going. I'm apologizing, but I want you to really get the gist of the message. So it's probably the same thing. I'm moving the goalposts a slight millisecond to the left, whatever. Players have roles with teams. And this person who I had this conversation with did watch the game, and he had a more in-depth analysis. I know all I had to go on was box score. But I also look at teams, and I look at players, and I look at rotations. LaMelo Ball does not really get the rotational time that he should, because, to say what I was saying, he really isn't a starter. Until the Hornets decide we're starting LaMelo Ball, he's going to have to push to get minutes as he can. Cole Anthony was given the green light because Markelle Fultz is injured. Let's call it what it is. I feel bad that Fultz was injured, but it also opened the door for Cole Anthony to get the minutes and the time and the productivity to show up. He showed up. He had a better game than LaMelo in the Charlotte-Orlando game. The other person who shared this did also go on record to talk about his the rookie watch between Cole Anthony and Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton, they both of them did not have the best game. I think they played like a decent amount of minutes, but might have scored 7 points apiece. So it wasn't the most productive stat line. And the toughest part about this, from a fan perspective or just from an overall basketball perspective, it's tough to challenge it, because then you're looking at minutes restrict. Not even, I won't even say minutes restricted. You're then looking at fantasy league factors, DraftKings factors. If this person was drafted in your DraftKings, how much money did you win, or how much money did you possibly lose because they didn't play or didn't give their best effort? So all of that comes into play now. I say all of that to say that now our rookie ladder has changed a little bit. Initially, LaMelo was the number one guy. Right now, it's James Wiseman. They don't have this included, but Wiseman actually broke his career high last night in his most recent game. And I'm sitting here forgetting who they played. They played Minnesota, actually. So it was interesting because you were able to see him and Anthony Edwards play against each other. And Anthony Edwards has, from watching that game, I realized he has a lot of respect for Steph. And he understands how, like, people think, oh, you're just seeing it on TV and you think all he's doing is just shooting. But there's a method and a movement to what Steph does on the court with his gameplay. We're not talking about Steph. We're talking about the observation of what we're seeing right now with players and the rotation. So right now, looking at our rookie ladder, you have James Wiseman as number one. We're just going with the top five. And maybe some honorable mentions in there too. LaMelo Ball, number two. Right now, Wiseman stats, he's averaging 12, 6, and almost 1 assist. LaMelo, 11, 6, and 6. Tyrese Halliburton is third. Tyrese Halliburton is going to get more rotational time because they're going to find a way to implement him and De'Aaron Fox on the floor at the same time. The only challenge is De'Aaron Fox is more of the point guard because De'Aaron Fox is not the best shooter, but he can shoot. And Halliburton, everyone's talked about Halliburton's form and shooting, but I think the main important factor to look at is as long as the ball is going in, who cares? But right now, Halliburton is averaging 11 points, 3 boards, and 5 assists. Then number 4, we just talked about him earlier, Cole Anthony, averaging 11, 5, and 3. At point guard, and especially at his height, that's pretty good. He didn't make the biggest leap in the rankings based on his, increased playing time because of Markelle Fultz being lost to injury. He's averaging 30 minutes. Like those, and that goes back to what I said, like how much the amount of time you're getting on the floor is going to play into what you do while you're on the floor. If you're getting 15 minutes, like he and this person brought up an even more interesting stat of saying, Dwayne Bacon played 15 minutes and got 15 points. But his 15 minutes and 15 points are a bigger impact for the team he's on versus Orlando, who, if you really look at Orlando's roster, they really don't have anybody that's able to do any scoring other than Vucevic. Call it what it is. Like getting that 20 from Cole is big because they need any points that they can get right now. And to round out, you have Anthony Edwards at 5. He's your higher scorer out of the players, but it's also the other stats that kind of play into it. He's averaging about 3 rebounds and nearly 2 assists a game. And then your next 5 after that, Emmanuel quickly, I feel like he's going to bump up a little bit as time progresses. He could possibly be a first team All-NBA depending on how New York uses him or Tibbs puts him in rotation. Okoro, I give it about 20. I give him another 20 games. I see him coming in and really doing his part to fit into Cleveland's rotation. He's getting the minutes and he's getting the time, but it's a tough position because he's averaging 8, 2, and 2. You're gonna be always battling for those minutes and those time, that time space based on the team they have. If he was more of a starter and it wasn't COVID protocol that screwed him over, then it would be a little different. But on the flip side, and this is always the number one thing with basketball and just with sports in general, when your number is called, you got to go out there and play. That's what we saw out of Ben Gordon during his tenure, at least with Chicago. And I don't want to, I think I've talked about this on the show, but I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to say it anyway. Ben Gordon in Chicago versus Ben Gordon in Orlando were two different Ben Gordons. And if you don't know what I mean by that, go back and look at his stats. I'm not going to sit here and I don't want to say the infamous Google it, but just really look at his stats and look at his usage of how he was involved with the team versus how he was involved with how he was involved with Chicago versus how he was involved with Orlando versus how he was involved with Charlotte. It was big differences between those teams, and that was what kind of affected his overall career in the NBA. But that's, again, another story. Rounding out the list, Xavier Tillman was 8. Jayshawn Tate was 9 for the Houston Rockets, and number 10 was Patrick Williams. Still not trusting Patrick Williams as a shooter. Sorry. And he just doesn't. This is kind of broken down. Indecision on offensive end called out by Coach Billy Donovan, which is tough because it's really hard to see college coaches try to understand how to coach in the NBA. The only advantage they have is because the game is getting younger, they can relate to some degree, but the NBA mindset versus the college mindset, night and day. And I think I've mentioned that or went into that conversation before. So that's what I have on the NBA main portion. I'm not going to say I'm going to speed through the next pieces of conversation, but while I'm getting everything prepped for what we have to continue forward, a friend of mine who is a big basketball guy, we had a fun conversation about basketball, and it went into the direction, and I couldn't find the actual article that mentioned this, but it was related to Steve Nash's concern with contact in the NBA. We're at the 40-minute mark, so I'm going to try this. I'll go ahead and let y'all know that this might be an hour and a half show. So hopefully I get all of the content to you that goes over what needs to be talked about and or addressed for the sake of podcasting and also for the listeners, because that's, you all are what it's about. Like, if you come and listen to the show, if you share the show with somebody else, like, thank you. I appreciate that wholeheartedly. But in the NBA, there's a lot of contact. Now, there's a difference between natural contact of you playing a guy and sometimes you're going to be physical, and what I like to call forced contact. The term or the reference that was used in me kind of reading trying to find information on this was the actual bumps and the specific type of fouls contracted or drawn by contact. It's an interesting scenario because as Nash being a head coach for the Brooklyn Nets, I don't know, I almost call them New Jersey Nets, but for the Brooklyn Nets, and you have a player such as James Harden, and you kind of can almost say Kevin Durant did this. If you go back to Kevin Durant's early years, Kevin Durant's, I don't know if they called it the swipe through, but it was a specific move that Kevin Durant would do where he could find a way to get a defender to be kind of like caught in the trap, or caught, like, it's almost like the mouse being caught in the trap because they got the cheese, or they're trying to get the cheese. They're trying to get the ball, but because they're in the space of the player, when Durant would go up and shoot the ball, referees would call the call. The call has lately not been called as frequently, but we also don't see that physicality as much as we used to, which it happens and it's understandable, but you just can tell that it's dealt with and handled way differently now than it was before. Like, guys, and this breakdown of what I'm about to talk about starts at like the little, not even, it's earlier in high school. It's almost like AAU, middle school. You could almost say elementary school in a sense, but at a younger age of playing basketball, you're taught to, when you're dribbling. So for instance, with dribbling the ball, most people who dribble, they dribble with whatever their dominant hand is. Their offhand has multi purposes. So for instance, I'm a lefty. My offhand being my right hand, I'm using that hand as an offhand to track any defenders. So like when you're from just a natural dribbling in one position type of scenario, you're naturally going to dribble the ball and try to dribble it away from your defender, but you're using your offhand to keep your defender away in a way of shielding but not slapping. And there's a big difference between the two. So that's one example that I'm looking at. But the breakdown of what Steve Nash was pointing out, or what my coworker was bringing up, is how, let's say we're playing a game where I'm on defense, the opponent shoots the ball, we get the rebound. I personally get the rebound and I'm dribbling down the court, but there's a player not really trailing, but they're near me enough to possibly draw contact, but I also am in an inadvertent spot of trying to shield and keep an eye on where they are, as well as keeping an eye on the game. It becomes a challenging scenario because you're looking at, how can I shield myself from not getting the ball stolen, as well as find a way to get close enough to get the player to get the ball, but not steal the ball and still draw a foul. The famous one that most players do is, if a player is close enough behind them, or let's say you pass the defender, you're in a structured like half court offense, and you're dribbling. You have a player in front of you. You dribble just enough past them, but you dribble forward a little bit, and as you're dribbling forward, your defender is still near you, but they're giving you a little bit of body contact and physical contact. And as you try to go for a shot, some referees are going to call that foul and some aren't. In hindsight and in reality, that is a perfect summary or a perfect breakdown of what's considered a 50-50 ball, which is the referee can either say, play on, no call, no foul, or, yeah, you kind of bumped him a little bit and got him out of his groove. The infamous one that always is talked about is when a player is shooting or in mid-form about to go in air to shoot. You have to give that player time to come down, or the opportunity to come down. And there's two scenarios of this. There's one where a player is in the air shooting. You are defending the player. You miss the ball but hit the player's hand. And it's not you high-fiving their hand. You hit their hand in the midst of shooting, or you swung at the ball too early and hit their arm, which have really messed up their shot. Most of the time, those are going to be called. As far as the defense factor of playing against someone and the person gets in the air, you get under the player. These are how a lot of ankle rolls happen, or a lot of players have had, major injuries. Like, we all remember the infamous Achilles injury with Durant. So it's like when you see these type of plays happen, it's very tough. And I'm all over the place with this, but my main point I wanted to bring up is, as we all know, yes, basketball is a contact sport. But with that being said, and with that being the case, you also have to realize that you have to know how to use the proper contact factors in drawing fouls, but not being the biggest baby of the prima donnas of the NBA because no one called a foul that you were trying to force but didn't do a good job of forcing. And that's kind of my overall presentation or conversation about that. So I wanted to talk about that, and I really went all down every direction possible. But if you are a basketball player, or if you have played basketball or watched basketball, you know every bit of what I just said. And if you have any responses to it, thepassbtpod@gmail.com. I would love to unpack or break this down on a more personal level, just to kind of talk about it and really get other people's perspective about it. We have our two Super Bowl teams, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to be petty because I can. Anyone who's in the sports group, I told you so, because y'all thought that for some reason that Green Bay was going to beat Tampa Bay, but obviously that didn't happen. A lot of people were going for the Bills for understandable reasons, because one of the guys in our group is an Oakland fan. So he's not going to cheer for Kansas City, and I don't blame him one bit. So I understood that factor. But Kansas City, it's Patrick Mahomes. Come on. Let's be honest. The Bills played a decent game, but it was primarily Kansas City's game to just kind of coast through and play. I believe these two teams did play each other, I believe, back on week 12. And a lot of times the NFL always generates certain matchups to possibly be what's considered as Super Bowl previews in the event that these teams could meet again. But I've been back and forth about this, and I've kind of gotten a lot of grief for it, because when people put who you going for, I'm the weird child, and I'm literally sitting here saying that it's the Buccaneers to the Buccaneers game to blow. If the Buccaneers lose it, it's going to be because Brady just did not want to play. I still believe Tampa Bay is going to win this Super Bowl. And if they do, then Tom Brady's going to retire. That's just my hot take. And I say hot take, but that's what I feel could happen. If Kansas City wins another championship, it really confirms that Kansas City put their money in the right place with the team. So that's kind of the two scenarios or the two things that we're looking at with that matchup as a whole. I have a story that literally just broke probably about an hour or so ago. It was confirmed that Deshaun. So to give context, the Houston Texans fired their coach. I believe one of their coordinators who was released or let go. Deshaun Watson wasn't a big fan of that, so that then confirmed that he wanted to be traded. They brought in a new coach. He said, before this coach was even announced, he stated, regardless of who they bring in as a coach, I don't like the Houston Texans culture. So he's now demanding a trade and would like to be traded. He officially requested to move weeks ago, but now he really is ready to move. They hired head coach David Culley. Not alter, hopefully it doesn't alter Watson's thinking. The situation has been trending toward Watson trying to leave Houston since early January, but it was previously unclear whether the three-time Pro Bowler had officially asked for a trade. And it just kind of gives some information about it. He's going to leave this year. It's just a matter of what team he goes to. It depends on what the trade market is. We also have to look at who wins the Super Bowl. All of those things happening will play into this as well. So that's what we have on that story. And I'm not lightly passing over that story, but it's a rumor. So until he's officially traded, I don't really want to push it as a huge or a big deal yet. Dwayne Haskins, if you all remember, was released by the end of the regular season based on some off-field incidents that raised questions about his maturity. As soon as they let him go, Pittsburgh did turn around and pick him up a week ago, and he is now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is under a 1-year deal. They're putting that deal on the table to mainly look at what he can possibly, do and get done in a year. It's kind of almost the Cam Newton breakdown of, hey, everything may or may not have went well, but here's your chance. If you can show us something, we'll give you a contract. And it's kind of it's also him playing to show himself for other teams as well. He had 16 career outings for Washington. He threw 2,804 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions, completing 60% of his passes. Greg Olsen officially announced retirement. I did not put this other article, but Jason Witten also announced his retirement. He was with Oakland. He's looking to sign a 1-day deal with Dallas so he can retire as a Cowboy. Great, cool, no problem. But Greg Olsen has announced his retirement after 14 years. He had been playing with the Panthers, and he went to, Chicago. So with Olsen in line for a new deal, Chicago decided to trade him to Carolina for a 3rd-round pick in 2011, where Olsen reached his full potential. He went to 3 Pro Bowls, earned 2 second-team All-Pro selections, and became the first tight end to record 3 consecutive 1,000-yard receiving seasons in 2014 to 2016. He enjoyed his best single season with the Panthers in 2015, catching 77 passes for 1,104 yards and 7 touchdowns. When the Panthers went to the Super Bowl that year against Denver, that was when Cam Newton was leading the team. He went for a ring attempt with Seattle. He overcame a ruptured plantar fascia to make it back in time for the Seahawks postseason appearance, and he did not advance. He finished his career on a positive note, catching 24 passes for 239 yards and a touchdown at the age of 35. He's lately been doing more broadcasting. He did make the announcement clear on Fox, NFL on Fox, so that was kind of the the announcement and his confirmation of his choice of what he was planning to do. Somewhat tabloid, but also a story that actually broke. I'm not going to use TMZ as an article for this source. I actually do have KCWE as the storyline in the breakdown, but Trey Songz was arrested for a physical altercation during the AFC Championship game at Arrowhead Stadium. Jackson County Sheriff's Department confirmed singer Trey Songz, and this is kind of like midline sports and stuff, so if you know, you know. Trey Songz was arrested during Sunday's AFC Championship game at Arrowhead Stadium. Sheriff Darryl Forte said a physical altercation occurred during the game at Arrowhead Stadium and is being investigated by the Jacksonville County Sheriff's Office. Jackson County prosecutors said the singer was released early Monday from custody as an investigation into the incident continues. During last night's AFC Championship game, fans complained that a man was not following the Arrowhead fans' code of conduct or the mandates of the Kansas City Health Department. They asked for private security to address this matter. The man was not receptive and refused to comply to Arrowhead security. Security then asked him to leave. He refused to leave. At that point, they requested law enforcement assistance and ejected him from the stadium. Officers advised the man that if he did not leave, he would be arrested for trespassing. He still refused to comply, at which point officers told him he was under arrest. The man then punched a police officer and put him in a headlock. Other officers then came to the scene and were able to get the man into custody without further incident. He was arrested and booked at the Jackson County Jail. He was arrested for trespassing, resisting arrest, both misdemeanors, and for assaulting a police officer, which is a low-grade felony. Footage obtained from TMZ appears to show the Na-Na singer slouched in his seat at Arrowhead as an officer struggles to detain him. Before the game, the singer posted a video on Instagram of him getting on a private jet. Quick flight, bae, I'll be right back. Dogs on the way home and chef pulling up at 8. Pull that steak out the freezer, boo-boo. And it's just a caption of the post. So, it sucks that you experienced that, but I'm hoping they get everything resolved with that, because it was just an odd scenario, an odd instance of it being handled the way it did. That's kind of like the mild or overall perspective of that story. As a Chelsea fan, this hurts, but I'm understanding why they did what they did, and they're doing what they have to do. So I'm not mad. Frank Lampard. Now, I'm going to talk about this for a second before and I don't want to go too off topic, because I know I've been doing that most of the morning, so I don't want this to bombard you all as listeners, but I'm going to address this while I can. Sports use terms of releasing managers, coaches, GMs very differently. I have always noticed in soccer or in football, they always reference it as sacked. And I love it, but it's interesting because I wish all sports could just say Portland Trailblazer, let me go back. Oklahoma City Thunder sack Billy Donovan after tumultuous season or whatever. But it's interesting when they do this in soccer. And I know that they're treated as managers and not coaches. So it's a little different on that factor too, because I've always had this conversation with people about soccer as far as or football as how do you term it? The uniforms that soccer players wear are kits. So when I've had people try to explain to them, like, you don't call them jerseys, they really look at me weird and not understanding. Go to a soccer game and call it a jersey. And if you make it out alive, I would love to hear your story. Come on the show. I would literally enjoy hearing about it. But Chelsea did part ways with Frank Lampard. 18 months, a lot of impatience. I believe they were not, I think they might have been they weren't the highest of the highs with the team during their actual tenure during his tenure for last year. I'm just going to check because I know they didn't have the best run last year. So I want to make sure that I'm noticing that before we go too into this, because it can be very. At times, it is very like you just don't know what a team does or doesn't has or has not gone through in their fixtures or in their matchups. So let me get this together, and I'm going to make sure that I can remember how they looked last year, because I don't think they did not make the Champions League cut for last year. And that could be a big. Oh, okay, I take that back. And see, this makes my point even clearer. But it also was it's the point difference. I think that was what it was. Chelsea last year was 38. I'm sorry. Let's start over. They played 38 games. They were 26-12. If you really look at all the teams that played, even with them being able to make that actual UEFA Champions League cut, they still only got 66 points. And they tied with Man United on that. Like the top six were Liverpool, Man City, Man U, Chelsea, Leicester City, Tottenham. And if you don't keep up with Premier League, 5th seed gets you a Europa League group stage, and 6th seed gets you a Europa League qualifier. And as you are evidently aware, if you're in the bottom 3, that automatically puts you in relegation stage or in the relegation zone. This year, it wasn't really the best of starts for him. I mean, like, right, there was a point that Chelsea was actually the number 1 team in the Premier League. Now, I think that is probably what led to him being fired. Chelsea was 1. Right now, they're at 30 points. Their record is 8-6-6. Man City is 1st. Man U is 2nd. Leicester is 3rd. West Ham is 4th. Liverpool 5. So that likely is playing into where this all stemmed about. They informed the players not to come to the club's training base at Cobham for their planned morning session while a formal statement was prepared. This is a very difficult decision for the club, not because I have an excellent personnel relationship with Frank and I have the utmost respect for him. This is written by Roman Abramovich. He is a man of great integrity and has the highest of work ethics. However, under current circumstances, we believe it's best to change managers. On behalf of everyone at the club, the board, and personally, I would like to thank Frank for his work as head coach and wish him every success in the future. They then went on to confirm that Thomas Tuchel will be the replacement, and they had him. He coached the last game, which I believe was, and I'm sitting here ready to say Tottenham, but it was not Tottenham. We played the Wolves, Wolverhampton, and we ended up drawing that game, which still kind of is not adding up, but whatever. It was a very like. Just seeing the table or just seeing the runs of the team as a whole, we'll do this. This will probably put it into perspective, and this is what got Lampard sacked, and then we'll get into stuff. We're at the hour mark. Wow. Starting at our Champions League game against Rennes. We beat Rennes. We drew Tottenham. We won against Sevilla. Like, winning games in the Champions League is good, but it's not just what you do in your like group stages. It's what you do when you actually get to the actual like playing against the top dogs. Because some teams in your group stages can be like a surprise team, but they don't really have as much weight. I'm just being honest. We beat Leeds. We were able to draw against Krasnodar. We lost to Everton. We lost to Wolverhampton already. Then we beat West Ham, which was a big win. We then lost to Arsenal, which was a tough one. We drew Aston Villa. We lost to Man City. In the FA Cup, we beat Morecambe. I hope I pronounced that right. We beat Fulham. Leicester beat us 2-0. FA Cup, we won 3-1. And that was when he got sacked after that match. So it went like it did, and it won't the best of a run. But as the saying goes, he went out there and he gave it his best. So that's all we can ask for as teams or as fans of the sport. So that's everything on the sports side. We're gonna go over to stuff, and as I'm preparing everything, I really hope that you all have been able to start off 2020 with, not 2020. I'm talking about the year that never was. I hope you all have been able to get 2021 to work to your advantage and be what you would like it to be for your benefit and growth. And that is really what it's about. And I'm going to really get into that a little bit more in the past message that I'm going to share at the end. First article up, we have anyone who is from the 90s and early 2000s remembers the website Two Cows, TUCOWS. Well, that once popular software site has now been closed. They are pulling employees away to do other tasks and other jobs. It was a known place to get a lot of your apps. Most people are happy to just use the modern app store. Microsoft and Apple both run their own or navigate to developer websites directly. And if you're looking for inspiration, there's always Product Hunt. Two Cows has decided, therefore, to finally shut down Two Cows downloads. It's old. And I mean, the site, if you really look at the site, it was very antiquated in its style and design, but it did what it needed to do. It was kind of a safe one-stop shop to pick up certain programs. Like anyone who wanted or needed a copy of WinZip went to Two Cows. And if you know what I mean by that, you know where I'm going with that statement. So Two Cows is no longer open. So that site is officially being shut down and closed. President Biden, as a cybersecurity guy, I am enjoying. This is a big deal. He has set up his world-class cybersecurity team based on the hacks that have happened. He's elevating the importance of cybersecurity in light of the SolarWinds hack that compromised multiple government institutions. Reuters reports that Biden has appointed and will soon appoint a host of officials well-versed in cybersecurity. To start, the new White House has chosen the NSA's Ann Neuberger for a newly created Deputy National Security Advisor role in the National Security Council. She's best known for leading the NSA's Cyber Defense Division and alerting companies to foreign hacker techniques. Other council additions are cyber security gurus, including Michael Solmeyer as Senior Director for Cyber, Elizabeth Sherwood Randall as Homeland Security Advisor, Rush Travers as Deputy Homeland Security Advisor, and Caitlin Durkovich as Senior Director for Resilience and Response. And they're getting roles set up for that and more information to share about this article. So it's good that we're getting that Biden is getting his pieces in place for his tenure as president. NBA is going to get rid of the NBC. I'm sorry, not NBA. NBC is closing down NBCSN, which is the NBC Sports Network or the sports cable channel. Their bundle of that package will be going away. Hockey, Premier League, and NASCAR will all be moving to the USA Network. This kind of was expected. They need the money for it because if you really look at it, March Madness is going to be a little different this year. And I don't think the NBC Sports didn't really show it to begin with. So I'm putting a wild card out there. Don't be surprised if you see this. But True TV might start picking up some sports. They already were picking up March Madness. Don't be surprised if True TV jumps on with possibly trying to get some of these sports venues or events as well. But they're shutting down. But it is going to be shut down at the end of the year. It's unclear what will happen to some of the content that it airs. They will certain things will be shifted over to the USA Network as they plan to dual broadcast some of these prior to the channel going dark. Whether or not this strengthens the streaming library right away as content giants like NBCU and Warner Media focus on their internet brands, we may see more of these cable bundles standbys fade away and consolidate into fewer channels after years of expansion. This is the Xbox section, so if you're not a fan of Xbox, you can skip ahead about 10 minutes. maybe 5. But Microsoft will be reversing the Xbox Live price hike and will add free multiplayer for games. Free-to-play games such as Fortnite will give free multiplayer access on Xbox in the coming months. About damn time. Like, if you don't need Xbox Live Gold for certain things, it should not be that serious to buy a gold membership for something that is a free-to-play game. It kind of almost doesn't tie together. You're playing a free-to-play game, but you still need to get our Xbox Live service to get on and play. Because you're already, as it is, paying for internet. So there's that. Soon, for free-to-play games like Fortnite, Apex Legends, or Halo Infinite, when it comes out later this year, multiplayer access will be free, making the Xbox a much more attractive platform for games on a budget. For gamers on a budget, playing a game like Fortnite on PlayStation Network or PC has always been free, and now Xbox will handle things the same way. So that would likely mean if you're a Rocket League player and you have the free version of Rocket League, you should be able to play online. The plans announced earlier today would have doubled the annual price for an Xbox Live Gold subscription that adds a number of benefits, but is mostly required for online multiplayer. Microsoft is pushing its expanded subscription that includes access to Netflix-like Xbox Game Pass library, and the move would have brought the prices closer together for new members, but made it a lot more expensive to play on Xbox as a result. Now things are staying the same but better. And Microsoft realized they dropped the ball. They're getting it straight. If you are an Xbox Live Gold member already, you stay at the current price for renewal. New and existing members can continue to enjoy Xbox Live Gold for the same prices they pay today. In the US, it's $10 for a month, $25 for 3 months, $40 for 6 months, and $60 for retail 12 months. Personally, my opinion is to normally get the Xbox Live for 12 months. I'm doing the month to month, and I kind of regret it a little bit because you pay way more money. You're literally paying double the price on the product, but you also are you're kind of unstuck in a sense in using what you're using because you could be paying for it like I am now and not using it. So it kind of sucks in that regard. Xbox supply is looking to be constrained in 2021. This goes back to the dreaded high demand, low supply battle with Xbox Series X. I'm not the biggest fan, and I'm going to be very blunt in saying this. It's going to be a while before I even consider buying an Xbox One Series X, because it's not even about the games that are going to attract or really pull me into buying it. I just don't see the urge of really buying a new system if I'm going to end up not playing it. And that's why I'm not the biggest fan. Like, I have the Xbox One S. I have the Gears of War model. I have it there. I have hopped on every once in a while, gotten into some retro stuff, but I really don't game as much as I used to. And I love gaming, and I think it's tough because when you're in a space where you're trying to work on other things, it is all about trying to see what is going to work for you and your routine. And this is going to tie into what my message, and I'm teasing to pass the message multiple times for a reason, and you'll see why as we get to it. Spotify is trying or is going to be doing audiobooks by offering 9 public domain works. I was able to find a friend of mine introduced me to a book for Taoism, and I was able to find, I hope I saved it. If I didn't, I'm going to be mad because then I got to go back and look for it. But Taoism is becoming a thing that is definitely very resourceful to well, let me backtrack. I'm not going to say Tao is a thing, but oh shoot, it never froze. Oh well, wait, come back. Gotta love when you're trying to use technology on the fly and it just is like, no, I don't want to work and I don't care what you're trying to do. Let's see, Tao. Because there are different books that you can find online so far. Like, they have playlists of different books available where you can just listen to it as an audio book, and it's broken down into different stories of that. Let's see. Spotify's aggressive move into content beyond music continues today as the company is testing a small pilot of audiobooks on the platform. Specifically, 9 classic audiobooks will be available streaming starting today. This isn't technically the first time Spotify has offered audiobooks, though before it only had a star-studded reading of the first Harry Potter novel. The 9 books are public domain titles like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, and Jane Austen's Persuasion. Naturally, Spotify has again recruited some well-known names to read the books, including Hilary Swank and Forrest Whitaker. Besides the audiobooks themselves, Spotify is also, including a complimentary deep dive on each book by Harvard professor Glenda Carpio. While these books are all public domain, the new recordings and the additional content from Carpio will be exclusive to Spotify. Both free and premium users will be able to access these books. Whether or not Spotify will take its interest in audiobooks beyond this pilot remains to be seen. Recording and offering a small selection of public domain books is a lot different than providing a large library of modern and classic titles. And I personally will say without a doubt that I'm a fan of this move and what this will bring to their table of what they're looking to do. Tao Te Ching. So I'm running a little bit off course, but this kind of may go into the music, to the AirPod Escape a little bit, or the music test. But the Tao Te Ching, they have an album, which I need to save this because it is a playlist. But it is literally Lao Tzu Taoism, and it breaks down it's literally like a couple of chapters. It's about an hour long, but it's basically listening to it in that form. Now that's going to be different from what this is offering, because this is like an actual audiobook that you can listen to straight through, and it's going to be similar to podcasting, because I get it. It's tough for a lot of book writers to have books be out and you have a book that you've written be presented in an audio form available to the masses. So there is that challenge, or that factor that you could possibly run into. And I want to make sure I check this link before we go any further. I did share a link, or I do have an article that the Beats Solo Pros are on woot.com, WOOT.com, for $150. They normally are a little bit more, and they are wireless noise canceling. And I'm gonna be 100% honest. I went back to my Beats Studio. I mean, not my Beats Studios, but my Beats Solos that I got a while back. I didn't realize how good those headphones, those headphones give a nice little sound. I'm not even gonna lie. I was sitting here, I was like, they actually got a little bit of a kick to them that I never would have expected. But I also know, and anyone who knows me always knows, if I get audio products, I'm not gonna cut corners on audio, because that's just my personal preference. And I understand people choosing to or not choosing to, and that's, all personal preference. But they had this deal initially at Christmas, but now you can actually grab these online. I want to make sure that I go to the link and still make sure it's available. It is still $150 as of right now. Your color options, you're only limited to light blue and I believe dark blue, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, light blue and dark blue. So that deal is still on the table. New music hasn't really been much that I've been listening to. I'm not gonna even lie or fake myself into believing otherwise. I've caught what I can, and I've just kind of been in a different space with some music. I've also been, as the saying goes, working on my own path, my own things that I'm looking to get knocked out. Wale does have a new single called Good Vibes, which I've been feeling that so far, and I've been playing that for a good little while. But there's really not a whole lot of new music that I've really been on. I've listened to Rubber Band by Tate McRae is a pretty good song. New Love featuring Ellie Goulding, that made me go back to her album or her music, and it was definitely worth the listen. Pomegranate by Coda the Friend, that's a good song, a good track to check out. And that's kind of those kind of the main ones that I've been checking out. I have not fully listened to this song Girl Like You by DeMello Flow, but I will be looking to get that a listen. And I mean, we're gonna see. Like I said, I'm still working on it, still trying to improve my music queue and get more music or songs in rotation. So it's time for me to be more accountable on that. And that is where my little JBL charge gets its life and gets its attention every once in a while. So we will see where or how that all plays out in the end. No ass of the week this week. I have a couple of people who have passed, and I will do a closing tribute as well as a message to pass along. We're gonna wrap up this show. I know and I hope I didn't rush through all of this stuff, because everything that was talked about or being addressed were big things that are going on right now. I'm gonna figure something out, because I may start doing stuff first. Because it's kind of weird if you call it podcast about stuff in sports, because then it's kind of like, are you stuffing sports into the show? So I'm gonna figure that out and see how I feel about it. Because I may flip it a little, kind of rotate it around. And if anyone has ideas, suggestions, or recommendations, please, I'm referencing you all, and I'm giving it as a fair shake. thepassbtpod@gmail.com. Again, if you want to give any input or inquiries on this podcast or on the platform, it's definitely received. I do check these emails like a lot, because it's just there and it's who I am. One of our late greats, one of our true OGs in baseball, Hank Aaron, did die at the age of 86. Him passing generated a very intriguing conversation with the Atlanta Braves. I give it a year. I think Atlanta's going to become the Atlanta baseball team, and they may be changing their name to the I forgot. They want to name it after Hank's nickname. So Henry Louis Hank Aaron passed at the age of 86. They did confirm that he had died peacefully. Stories of rumors circulated of saying that he had COVID before, and they thought that he had passed because of COVID, but that turned out not being the case. It was natural causes. He was able to, he still holds the major league records for RBIs at 2,297, total bases 6,856, and extra base hits at 1,477. He ranks among the MLB's best in hits at 3,771. He has third for games played at 3,298 and 2,174 in runs scored at fourth. And that's what it is. The Atlanta Hammers, or I think is what they're looking at, because his nickname was Hammer Hank. But he had a home run swing that was well known. He was 6 foot, 180 pounds. He broke Babe Ruth's hollowed home run record on April the 8th, 1974, slugging his record 715th home run off of the Dodgers left-hander Al Downing. And he ended up, when he retired, he was at 755, and as we all know, his record was broken by, I believe, Barry Bonds. The biggest story and I think it was Barry, Sammy Sosa, and Mark McGwire, if I'm remembering right. Let me just make sure, because I didn't talk about this, and I'm probably bad for not doing this. But I'm sorry. Let me backtrack. The home run record as of right now, number 1 is Barry Bonds, and number 2 is Hank Aaron. So because I want to be sure that I'm giving y'all the right information. Yeah, McGwire. So McGwire is at 583. Sosa's at 609. And I didn't have this as an article, but I'll share it anyway. This is the first year in, I want to say, in almost 30 years, or a good little while, that there will be no one inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I believe Curt Schilling said that he's taking his name out for consideration for future runs of getting into the Hall. And I believe this was, the second or third year for Bonds, and he didn't get any first place votes. This next story is even tougher because like both of these men were black or are black men. Sekou Smith, who anyone who watched NBA, especially NBA TV, would always be tuned in to get any information from him related to basketball. He died at the age of 48. He was having a battle with COVID-19. And he's from Grand Rapids, Michigan. He went to college at Jackson State in Mississippi. He became a fixture in the NBA universe. He was a beat writer for the Indiana Pacers and the Atlanta Hawks before joining Turner Sports in 2009. He starred across all platforms of Turner, serving as an analyst for NBA TV, a writer for NBA.com, and host of the Hang Time podcast. It is very hard because being in the role that I'm in and knowing how a lot of people don't take COVID as serious, when you lose anyone who is African American to COVID, it does make you really sit and wonder and think like it could have been me. I think I've shared on the show already, like I had tested positive last year for it. Thankfully, I did quarantine, and I was, after the quarantine period, I did another test and it came back negative. And now, I take care of myself, but I'm just one person. Everyone's body, everyone's immune systems are different. He's survived by his wife Heather and their 3 children, Gabrielle, Riley, and Cameron. Definitely was a very tragic passing. His commitment to journalism in the basketball community was immense, and we will miss his warm, engaging personality. This was a statement written by Turner Sports. I couldn't watch a lot of TV, or I really didn't watch a lot of the news when I found out this story. And what makes it tough is he died on the same day that Kobe died last year. And because of who I am and how I operate with certain things, as soon as I had read or saw the announcement, I'm online trying to find images to see if there was any point that Sekou and Kobe took a picture together or something, and couldn't find anything. Now, maybe it's some out there now. I don't know. But Tuesday was the 1 year, or is the 1 year anniversary of Kobe's passing. I'm going to talk about it here, but I'm not going to talk about it too much. I did do a actual blog on the 1 year anniversary, in mentioning all of the victims who were in that plane crash. We'll do a 24-second moment of silence real quick. And I said 24, but then as I was doing it, I said I'm gonna do a 26-second because it's for Kobe and Gigi, and also because it was on the 26th. As most of y'all know or have not been aware, I'm a big numbers person, so that it's kind of like you move with where life moves you, and that's kind of where I was at, or where I'm at with everything. Prayers and condolences to Sekou's family, the NBA family, the Turner TNT family, the NBA.com family, just everyone in this world, man. Because I really personally do not think people realize the impact of just where we are as a world, not just as a country, just as a world. And I'm reminded a lot of times without knowing it to just take a moment and really just breathe and relax. Because sometimes we go, do, push, that we really don't take that moment at that time to just kind of stop and really enjoy. Like, we hear the term stop and smell the roses, but we really don't know what stopping and smelling the roses feels like or looks like, because it's just not in us sometimes, where we as people just look at it as, I gotta go, I gotta do stuff, I gotta do something. And I definitely don't want to overshadow or pass over what we have or are experiencing right now. And I know, like I said, I'm sitting here looking at the levels of the show, and like most of the levels I've been pretty upbeat and up tempo, but this part and this show, like this particular part of it, it was like Hank Aaron passing was huge, because even with me not being a big baseball fan, like I've always heard the name Hank Aaron. He's thrown out the first pitch for multiple games. He's been just an overall nice human being. Like there really was never a point that you heard anything bad about him as a person. So, even with hearing that story, and I don't know if we talked about, I think we already talked about it, but rest in peace to Larry King. That's still surreal. But yeah, the Sekou story hit just because, I'm looking at it as he's 10 years older than me. And, I always go back and saying it like Kobe was a couple years older than me. So it's a reminder to really understand how important it is as I'm looking at this sign, and I'm looking to get a newer version of the sign to consistently be on a constant quest to be the best version of yourself. And this honestly goes, and before I forget, condolences and heartfelt support to the Bryant family, to Vanessa, to the girls, to just her family, to Kobe's family, to a lot of any players or any teammates that have played or interacted with Shaq that interacted with Kobe at any point. I send out nothing but love and support to all of you all. Excuse me. This now goes into my message that I'm going to pass along, which I put this as a status a while back, and I'm not going to go back and look for the status because that's just too much work. But it mainly has to do with the simple fact of you have to find your way. You have to find your lane. You have to do things in your manner that are going to work for you. People are going to give you so much advice. They're going to give you a lot of input. They're going to give their perspective on various things. But what you find to work for you is going to work for you. I present that in that manner, and I say it with that tone, because if we really were to look at, and I might have talked about this last year, but if I did, my bad. But Kobe did things very unorthodox, and a lot of people didn't understand that. With him, when he even gave the story about why he would take planes to and from practices or to and from different events because of the traffic in LA. And it just came about where it was a thing of he would never have it so that all of the family members were on one plane, because if that, let's say that were to be the case in this, all of them would have passed. And we don't want to think that way. And that's not me going morbid. That's not me going dark. That's just me bringing this story full perspective. He found that to be his way to do what he thought was in his best interest. And he would have never thought or would have never realized that would be the last flight or last plane he would be taking. But it was his way, and it was how he did things. And we can't fault him, and no one is faulting him for what happened. But to take it into our lives and in our routines, Take your time in finding your path or your method to getting what you need to get done to be better at what you do. Everyone is going to give you tips. You're going to read things on social media. You're going to read things in books that are going to break down a lot of things for ways to get stuff done. But you also have to find your personal path or your personal preference to get what it is you need to get done to get where you're trying to go. I'm going to say this on air and I'm going to wrap this up. I have been in a pursuit mode probably for like the last couple of weeks in finding work, because of where I'm at and what I do. I value what I do, but I also know change is inevitable. Like, you want more, you want to do more, you want to be more. As much as I would love to, and I would adore being in IT and getting a computer gig, I also have to be smart in where I'm going and what I'm trying to get done. An opportunity was presented to me to consider. I considered it. I went through the stages, did an interview, received a call that made me really find my way to be emotional without being emotional. I tried my hardest to not cry. I didn't cry then. I haven't cried today. Like, internally, I've been emotional, and it's not that I'm not wanting to feel. It's just I have been so moving forward and just pressing and being grateful and being thankful for where life has brought me. I said it, I never at any point claimed 2021 to be my year, but I also called it the year of BT. So it's like, you gotta pick a side, bro. But I really have been in a space to just put my focus on myself and bettering myself in my routine, and knowing that there's more in store. And that's kind of been what this has been about. And it's been me finding my way to do it. Like, I've had people who have given input or given perspective on, you should do this, you should look at this. And I'm like, thanks, but I'm good. I got it. If I need you, I'll let you know. I've kept contacts. I've socially distanced myself from contacts. That's a better way to say it. And I don't feel bad for that. Normally I'd be, in arm's length trying to reach out to people and check on them. And now I'm just like, they have my number. Or if they don't have my number, they can find a way to get a hold of me. It's a matter of how far a person is willing to go to do what they're trying to do. So I say all of that again to reiterate and reemphasize. Find your way, find your path, find what works for you, and do what you think is going to get you into a better position. I hope everyone enjoys the show. I am going to sign out. We will be back. I believe it's probably going to be a chill week between now and next Wednesday, because the Super Bowl is not until, I think it's weird. Like, if I'm knowing the script and the process with the Super Bowl, it's likely going to be a much different scenario. And if I'm looking at this correct, the Super Bowl won't be played until after the next show. That clears all of that up, because they're gonna, of course, we got to do media week. They got to have the week going into the infamous Pro Bowl, which I still think that's interesting that they're doing the Pro Bowl in a versus format, and they're going to have it on Madden. But hey, it's better than nothing. I would rather even seeing the NBA go their route and doing 2K before I would rather see an actual NBA game be played. I mean, if they play, they play. Adam Silver going to do what he wants. I mean, he's a billionaire for all we know. So that is all I have for today. I hope you all have an amazing day, have an amazing week, the remainder of your week, an amazing weekend. Align yourself with the proper people. And if nothing else, if you're sitting at a table that does not feel like the right table, politely get up from your seat and go to another table. And if you don't understand what that means, go check out my blog, brite1982.wordpress.com. It will be the most recent blog on my page if you do not see the blog called 1 Year Later. All right, y'all. I'm out. Till next time. You have made it to the end of yet another episode of the Pass BT Pod. I hope you gained something or walked away with some worthwhile information, whether it was related to any of the information provided about sports, about music, about technology, or possibly my personal fave, the Pass the Message. We want you to come in with an open mind and an open heart and walk away with something that's going to benefit you and carry you through your day, through your week, through your month, through your life. And that's the main objective here on the Pass. So I hope you were able to receive that. If you are looking to get find a good place to host your podcast, you can check out buzzsprout.com. And if you're also looking to invest in a microphone, a lot of people have their angst or their differences towards it. But I'm currently using the Blue Yeti X, and I've been using it for a little over a year. And it's still to this day one of my best investments I've made. And if I always give this as my closing tip. If you are a creative and you have the space to create, do not do your least to give your best effort towards what you're good at doing. Until next time, y'all take it easy.